Micah 2 and verse 2. And they covet fields and take them by violence, and houses and take them away. So they oppress a man in his house, even a man in his heritage. I'd like to give all glory, praise, and honor to Yahweh Bahasham, Yahweh Shai Bahasham, Rakach Wadash. Double honors to the elders and apostles of the Great Millstone, and Shalom to the elect of Israel. This is Thamayim in Atlanta, and this past weekend, for the first time, I was allowed to speak at camp, and it was awesome. It was great. But anyway, we started going into how Esau not only goes around stealing the heritage of the Israelites, but he also has stolen the heritage of the other nations. And he does this through what's called whitewashing, or through his art and his images of just taking the same image and repainting it or whitewashing it as a so-called white person, even though scripturally they were red. And they do this through their movies and through their media. And as they say, a picture says 1,000 words, so they don't even have to do too much after they've made these images. They just push them around the world, and especially when they're coming in with violence and stealing, as it says, when they covet fields. So they're going around the world stealing stuff through violence, stealing lands, and then setting up their image in these lands. And so we are going to take a look at Zeus Aethiops. And this is Zeus from the Greek pantheon of gods. And just a side note, Israelites are not pagans, so I've got nothing to do with this. This is just going into the fact that Esau has stolen the heritage of other nations, and this is a great example, because since you've seen Zeus, or at least since I've seen Zeus, it's always been this big red man, or big so-called white man with white hair and a white beard, throwing thunderbolts and lightning bolts and stuff like that. But originally he's called Zeus Aethiops, and Aethiops literally goes into being dark-skinned. And so this says Aethiops, the glowing or the black, a surname of Zeus under which he was worshipped in the island of Chios. And so there you go, got an image right there. And in these ancient Greek, especially Greek pictures, you'll notice the men are portrayed as dark-skinned, and the women are portrayed with lighter features. And so you can see that right there. But that's supposedly Zeus. Right here you've got a chematologist, and he says blackness in ancient Greek mythology, which we know nobody is actually black. You just have dark skin. That's Esau's color magic, making us black, which is void of light, or all of the wrong, all the bad things within the earth, and making themselves white, which goes into purity and innocence, and they are anything but. But it says, just as in Kemet, blackness was deified in early Greece, and it says black people appeared as gods in Greek mythology. The chief title of Zeus, greatest of the Greek gods, was Aethiops. That is black, which means black. And so you see, some people do know these things, that not everything within the earth was actually a white man doing it. Here's some more images. This is the whitewashed version, and you can tell, especially because of that eagle, because we know Esau loves the eagle, and that's his kind of like his calling card within the scriptures. It calls him the eagle. And so you see they go around and make statues and different structures of different Edomites in place of what was there before, which were dark-skinned men. And this says, did you know, according to the ancient Greeks, Zeus and the other Greek gods used to spend 2 weeks each year in Africa feasting with the Africans. And back then in ancient times, they actually called pretty much everybody in the land, all of the land below Egypt, they call all of that Ethiopia. And so they called everyone with dark skin Ethiopians or Aethiops. And even the country of India, they even called them Ethiopians, Aethiops. And just to prove it, I'll go here. Let me refresh this real quick. So I just typed it in, Aethiops. Aethiops, and this is coming through Wikipedia. It says Aethiops is an archaic term used to refer to a dark-skinned person. And so Zeus Aethiops is definitely referring to a dark-skinned deity. And so this all happened here, starting here in First Maccabees, the first chapter and the first verse. And it says, and it happened after that, Alexander, son of Philip the Macedonian. So this is Alexander the Great, or Alexander the Greek. Says, who came out of the land of Chittim, had smitten Darius, king of the Persians and Medes. And that term Mede right there, it goes back to Mediah, one of the sons of Japheth. And so they took these lands or Greece from the Japhetic people, showing you that these were brown-skinned people here at first. And it says, and he reigned in his stead, so it was in his stock, within his race, the first over Greece. So he was the first Edomite to rule over Greece, or first in these times they refer to him as a so-called white person. So they took this land from some dark-skinned people, and made many wars and won many strongholds and slew the kings of the earth. And he did. He went throughout the earth, conquering for, I want to say it was 11 years, and he conquered the known world at that time. And it says, and went through to the ends of the earth, the known world, and took spoils of many nations, insomuch that the earth was quiet before him. Whereupon he was exalted, and his heart was lifted up. So he did his conquering. And we're going to skip down to verse 7. It says, so Alexander reigned 12 years, and then died, and his servants bare rule, every one in his place. So these are his 4 generals. This goes into Cassander, Lysimachus, Ptolemy, and Seleucus. It says, and after his death, they all put crowns upon themselves. And so they actually crowned themselves, became kings, and they split the kingdom into 4 regions. It said, so did their sons after them many years, and evils were multiplied in the earth. And these are Edomites. And according to Malachi 1 and 4, they are the wicked. And so, of course, when they come into rule, evils are going to be multiplied within the earth. And of those evils, which is many, many, many evils that they bring, from their violence and their theft and their raping, their deviant sexual behavior, this is also another. So First Maccabees 3 and 48. And this is after they took over the sanctuary, and the Maccabees stood up and were taking things back. And so when they got in the sanctuary, it says, and laid open the book of the law, wherein the heathen had sought to paint the likeness of their images. So the heathen, that being the Alexander and his armies, and especially this being Seleucid at this time, they had taken the images which were in the holy books and replaced the Israelite images with Edomite images, or with red images, with so-called white images. And so you can see this is an ancient practice of theirs. It's not just Yahushua, who the world ignorantly calls Jesus Christ. It's not just him who's been whitewashed, or the Father and the angels. It's been of the other nations as well. And this goes back into this is the time of the during the Greek Empire. So, they did the same thing to the pantheon of Greek gods. Prime example being Zeus Aethiops. And just to seal it off and show that they are Idumeans, this is 1 Maccabees 4:61. And they set there a garrison to keep it, and fortified Bethsura to preserve it, that the people might have a defense against Idumea. And so they weren't Greeks, even though they moved into the land of Greece and started calling themselves Greeks. They actually go back to the biblical nation of Edom, which Idumea is the Greek way of saying Edom, which means red, out of Wam, because the blood shows through their skin because they lack melanin. Actually, let's go to Amos. So Amos 9 and verse 7, because he was called Zeus Aethiops. So, are ye not as the children of the Ethiopians unto me, O children of Israel? So it's speaking to the Israelites, but it's speaking prophetically to the scattering which would occur to the Israelites into the land of the Ethiopians, which I was telling you earlier goes from, it's basically everything south of Egypt, and everyone that's dark skinned, they just got classified as Aethiops. And right now we're still classified in that way because we're being called black, and African Americans, because that goes back to the land of Ham, to Africa. But we are not black, we are not African Americans, which African goes into, or that's from Scipio Africanus conquering, or after he beat Hannibal in I think there's the Peloponnesian Wars. I could be wrong about that, but the land that they called Ethiopia, or Aethiops, they started calling it Africa after Scipio Africanus, and they started calling Asia after his brother Scipio Asiaticus. And so you can see that we're back to the point, are ye not as the children of the Ethiopians unto me, O children of Israel? And so this is actually prophetically speaking of the scattering and how we would be just mixed in with them, like or mixed in with them and just referred to as Ethiopians. It says, saith the Lord, have not I brought up Israel out of the land of Egypt, and the Philistines from Caphtor, and the Syrians from Ker. And so I went to that just because we're speaking of Zeus Aethiops, and we're speaking of color, so that helps to enhance the picture. And we'll end it off here at Isaiah 25:7. It says, and he will destroy in this mountain, in this current system, this current government that's set up, the face of the covering cast over all people. And the covering that's been cast is just the confusion that's here people don't know who's who and what's what and what goes back to what. Great example is Zeus Aethiops. Even and it's all through Esau's conquering and taking over and renaming places and moving people into different areas and them renaming themselves, like they moved into Greece during the time of Alexander, started calling themselves Greeks. In modern times, they moved into America, started calling themselves Americans, and into Australia, calling themselves Australians, and even into Europe, which they weren't the original Europeans. The original Europeans were Japhetic. But that is a part of the covering cast. The ancient Moabites and the current Moabites are referred to as Asians, and the current Elamites are referred to as Asians. And I was just saying that goes back to Scipio Asiaticus. And so there's a lot of confusion and a lot of darkness within the earth. But the Lord said he's going to destroy that. And even this lesson and going into Zeus Aethiops is a part of destroying that covering that's been cast over all people. And it says, and the veil that is spread over all nations. Showing, it says, all people and all nations. So it's not just Esau covering the faces of the judges thereof. As in Job 9 and 24, he's not just taken heritages from, or the heritage of the Israelites, he's taken it from all the other nations, or at least parts of it. The Greeks specifically, he's done it with the Vikings. Those were dark-skinned men, and he'd swear now that the Vikings were so-called white people, but that is not their heritage. They're not the angelic sons of Isaac, the Anglo-Saxons. They're more like the Diablo or Sado sons of whatever. They're not who they say they are. They go back to Edomites, basically. And we're gonna finish it back at Micah. Micah 2 and 2. And they covet fields and take them by violence. And so they see a land and they take it through their blessing, the sword, and houses, and take them away. So they oppress a man and his house, even a man and his heritage. And so they not only steal land and resources, they steal your identity. They steal the things that make you who you are. And that goes into why so many nations are in confusion. It goes into especially why the Israelites are in confusion, because they stole our heritage, and part of them call themselves Christians, another part of them call themselves the actual people of the Lord, and they actually took that land and they're pretending to be the people of the Lord, but they are not. It says there's a saying in the world, you have to know where you came from to know where you're going. And so they took away the compass or the future of a lot of nations, not just the Israelites. But they will be punished mostly for what they did to Israel. And so, Lord willing, that was edifying. I'd also like to say I heard this term Zeus Aethiops through one of Apostle Aryamlab's live streams for the first time, and it stuck. That's a eye opener to know that he was called Zeus Aethiops. But Lord willing, that was edifying. I'd like to give all glory, praise, and honor to Yahweh Bahasham, Yahweh Shai Bahasham, Rakach Wadash. Double honors to the elders and apostles of the great millstone, and shalom to the elect of Israel. Shalom.